fear tells me that I can predict the future, which seems ridiculous when you hear it like that. So instead, I want love to tell me that I can predict the future. So to me, that means rather than catastrophizing and living into the wreckage of the future, I want to live into the miracles of the future. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I'm a boundaries coach who specializes in helping women who are focused on what others are thinking and doing and neglect themselves in the process. And I have coached hundreds of people on how to build healthy boundaries using my exclusive Build framework. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. I'm an avid beachcomber who collects sea glass, shells, wood, and stones. I am a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially the Christmas movies. Hello, Christmas in July. I wear fingerless gloves from September to June because my hands are always cold, so I have about 15 pairs. And I get a huge kick out of counting how many days, weeks, and months there are until my birthday or Christmas at completely random times of the year. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. If you like what you've heard on this episode, please screenshot it and share it on your social media and tag me at Higher Power Coaching. This is episode 234, my random recovery ramblings from the middle of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night and for some reason felt compelled to pick up my phone and record the thoughts that were going through my head. I immediately thought, I'm going to call this random recovery ramblings in the middle of the night. But when I went to put the phone back in the cradle after recording, I realized it was 6:30 in the morning. It wasn't the middle of the night. But I still think that sounds better to say middle of the night than early morning. So I'm going with it. I was tempted to share the actual recording here on the podcast so you could hear my middle of the night / early morning voice and my thoughts, how they came out, but it's not very good quality and there's a lot of filler words in it. And actually, as I say that, this is perfect timing for something like that because I'm revamping my Patreon account and I'm about to offer a new tier on my Patreon account for people who are big podcast fans and would love to get the episodes early. The tier is called the Podcast Patron and will be $15 a month. And those people will get early release copies of my transcript every week. And then a couple days later, they'll get an early release of the actual podcast episode. That's every single week. And so I think as a bonus that I will give the audio to that. So you can hear what I sound like in the early morning, which sounds like I have a really bad cold. Anyway, another thing I realized after listening to the audio was that it all doesn't have necessarily to do with recovery, but I'm sharing it anyway so you can see what the inside of my head is like. All right, here are my ramblings. This is a mishmash of stuff on my mind. Last night, a fellow shared on the reading we did in ACA on perfectionism. She said that when she was wrong, even if somebody pointed it out to her, it was almost as if she couldn't see it. Like it was a defense mechanism, because if she was wrong, then somehow she wouldn't be safe. Well, that resonated with me so deeply. I was like, oh my God, she just broke the truth in a way that I never could have spoken. It resonated with me so deeply, and I wish it had been recorded. So I texted her and I said, I 100% identified with your share. Every word felt like the truth to me. And I was listening to you thinking, I wish this was being recorded. And she wrote back and said, this is one of the kindest compliments I've ever received. Thank you for reaching out to share this with me. I was also thinking about how I heard someone say recently, your inner critic has been gaslighting you for years. And I thought how true that is. My inner critic has been feeding me bullshit for decades. And despite all the evidence to the contrary, I've believed that bullshit for much of my life. And that made me think about how Michelle Chalfant, the host of the podcast, The Adult Chair, says, adults live in fact and truth. So what that means is I should be paying attention to the real life evidence that I have that's to the contrary of what my gaslighting inner critic says to me. And then I was thinking about Marty Christopher Robin. This is my yellow teddy bear from New Mexico that I got on my road trip. And I got him because I just needed to see that sewed on smile he has, because looking at a little bear or a little doll like Russell or Marty or Raggedy Ann with their sewed on smile can just make me really happy. I already uploaded pictures of all three of them into that tier that I just talked about on Patreon for members, so you can take a look. Those three characters, Marty, Russell, and Raggedy Ann, spend the day on my bed, sometimes the night in my bed. More often, they spend the night on my nightstand. Now, here I am, a grown woman at the age of 60 with teddy bears and dolls, but they make me happy and they heal me. So fuck what other people think. I'm happy and healed. And then I started thinking about being a teen and how a little while ago I was reparenting myself and telling my inner teen all kinds of lovely things. And then I said to my inner critical parent during this episode, who, by the way, her name is Irene, I said, Irene, I really love you. And I'm so grateful for you. You had my back for so long. And also, you've been gaslighting me. You've been feeding me bullshit, and it has to stop. No more making mountains out of molehills. No more living into the wreckage of the future and laying out every worst case scenario you can think of. And then that led me to something I read the other day, which is fear tells me that I can predict the future, which seems ridiculous when you hear it like that. So instead, I want love to tell me that I can predict the future. So to me, that means rather than catastrophizing and living into the wreckage of the future, I want to live into the miracles of the future. I've been practicing by fantasizing about all the good things that are going to happen and how fabulously I'm going to feel. And then one thing I try to remember along with that, which I don't do such a good a job at, is that when I picture the future, make sure God is there already. Because guess what? God is already there. That is the actual truth. And then one other thing I just read in the book, You're a Badass at Making Money, which, oh my God, I cannot tell you how fucking good that book is. First of all, it has the word badass in the title. So come on. And it's got to be good with that. Secondly, even though I have never heard the woman Jen Sincero speak, I guarantee you she writes the way she talks. It is such a pleasure to read the way she writes. It's so conversational and regular. She's not trying to use any fancy words or anything. And she gives lots of concrete suggestions for actions to take and mindset stuff like affirmations and money mantras. And one of the many, many cool things she says about money is the money you desire is already here. Oh my God, I fucking love thinking about that. It makes me think of a story I heard about a spiritual person. I have no idea who it was or where I heard this. They wanted to do something like, I don't know, build a sanctuary or monastery, an orphanage, start a nonprofit. I don't know what it was. And they were asked publicly, where are you going to get the money from? And they replied, we're going to get it from wherever it's at right now. And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking brilliant. And now I love thinking about that. So the money I want is already here. I just need to get it to me. There is no scarcity. And then there's another thing. I am doing this 5-part series in my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments. The series is about overcoming victim mentality because it's so fucking pervasive for people in recovery. And it's also a huge part of what I help my clients do in my boundaries coaching work, because I see that a lot of people who have unhealthy boundaries are sitting around waiting for other people to change. And a big part of boundary setting is learning to keep the focus on yourself and on you changing. Sitting around waiting for people to change is victim mentality. And if you feel like you can't do anything unless they change, that's victim mentality. Well, I was thinking about this series that I've been writing because I got some really good feedback for part 2 of the 5-part series. People don't very often reply to my newsletter, so it's really cool when I do get feedback. And one of the pieces of feedback I got on this one was actually not on the newsletter article. It was on my intro letter that I write about like what's going on with me. And in that, I shared how I've had such deeply entrenched scarcity mentality for so long. And one of the things that the coach Tiffany Carter does is she offers these abundance walk meditations. And one of the things she has you do is think about and observe all the abundance in the universe. She urges you to look around and see how abundant the universe actually is. And it's really helped me to be like, oh my God, there's so much fucking abundance out there. When you just think of the physical world, like how many leaves are on this planet? How many trees? There's something like 8 billion people, never mind all the other types of animals and plants and stuff like that. And then how much wealth there is that already exists. There's literally more wealth being created all the time. And I was thinking about that and I thought, wait a minute. The universe is literally expanding at every moment. So that means the abundance of the universe is literally expanding at every moment. Well, I wrote that in my intro letter. And one of the comments I got back from somebody said that he realizes that he has had this scarcity mentality. And he really saw it in the way that I wrote about it. And he said, I think I'm going to carry around this quote all the time about how the universe is always expanding and therefore abundance is always expanding as we speak. So those are my ramblings for this week. Welcome to the inside of my head. Oh, and this is the cleaned up version. I was recently reminded by a friend that when I first started recovery, I didn't feel lovable. I almost can't believe that I used to feel that way and that I kind of forgot something so profound because I truly love myself now. And I want that for everybody. If you don't love yourself, there's literally nothing that can make up for that. I created something exclusively for my private clients since many of them don't love themselves. And I've now opened up my private vault to share it with up to 10 people individually. It's called the Self-Love Sprint. You'll grow to love yourself and truly feel worthy so you can stop saying yes when you really want to say no. Stop neglecting yourself and putting everyone else first. Stop saying all kinds of nasty shit to yourself. That is not what people who love themselves and feel deserving do. You'll stop being afraid that others will think that you're selfish for taking time to care for yourself. This is also for you if you don't really know who you are because you've always been such a fucking chameleon. go to higherpowercc.com/lovesprint. Remember, I'm only offering 10 of these, so don't wait. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did or you wouldn't still be listening, then you're gonna love the other things I have to offer. If you'd love pre-release podcast scripts and episodes before anyone else gets them, or if you'd love access to content from my private vault that I developed exclusively for my private clients, which is like having a work session with me without me actually being there, go to patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. There are 3 tiers ranging from as low as $4 up to $24 a month. You'll also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has content very similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. Please like and subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. I'd also love it if you'd leave a review, which you can do either in the show notes or on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other people find my podcast so they can get the benefits you've gotten from listening. If someone came to mind when you listened to this particular episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run group and private coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net, where you can hop onto my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I would love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.